Hello and welcome to the Functionally Enlightened Podcast with Dr. Sharon Surita. We interview well-respected medical and functional practitioners, as well as patients who have overcome disabling chronic conditions, such as dysautonomia, and reclaimed their health. These enlightened guests provide helpful tips on managing chronic pain and illnesses, using a combination of traditional and whole-body healing modalities. If you're interested in natural healing and quality of life improvement, you're in the right place. Thank you for listening to today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Functionally Enlightened Podcast. We have a very special guest who's going to educate us on a healing modality that we talk about often, and it's Dr. Carl Rothschild. He is a seasoned chiropractor with over 48 years of clinical experience. He's a true pioneer in the field of red light therapy. His passion for natural healing led him to explore and eventually innovate the use of low-level laser therapy for a wide variety of chronic and complex conditions. As the founder of Trifecta Light, Dr. Rothschild has worked with thousands of patients, including those facing autoimmune conditions, things like gut issues, even Lyme disease, chronic fatigue. And so I know that he also has experience with post-surgical inflammation, which is where we come in. His technology combines red and near-infrared wavelengths designed to support healing at the cellular level. So Dr. Rothschild, we appreciate you being on the show today. I know you have a wealth of information to share with us.
I really appreciate having this opportunity. This is what it's all about for me.
Absolutely.
To educate people and to help as many people as I can. So I started in the early 70s, and that was a time of a little bit of rebelliousness on my part. I was going to I went through a very good college in New York and decided I couldn't decide what I want. What are you going to do in the rest of your life, right? So I knew I was going to be in science because I loved biology and science, but I wasn't sure. But I was introduced to the notion of being a chiropractor. And I want to tell you that it wasn't really popular in New York at all. And but I explored it. I called and to call people back then in 72 was a big deal, long distance and all that sort of stuff. But I called all over the country and I never found a chiropractor that wasn't thrilled to be a chiropractor. And I said, that's what I want. I want to wake up in the morning and go to work for something that I'm excited to do. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, help as many people as I possibly can. And my notion back then of my version of a hippie was that money was not going to be my deciding factor. I mean, I didn't mind making money, but I knew that I wanted to help people. I know it sounds corny, but and to this day, I'm in the same position, sort of the same position as I was back then. Although back then I couldn't afford, lunch, but now I'm doing much better. At any rate, then, so I became a chiropractor in 1978. I eventually had overall 12 practices. I was a busy guy and I loved what I was doing up until I was introduced to red light therapy. Now, red light therapy back then was nowhere. This is we're talking about 28 years ago, 27 years ago. But there was a medical doctor that I knew before he was involved with red light therapy, and he's the one that brought it to the United States. And his name was Chadwick Smith. He was a medical doctor, actually an orthopedic surgeon out of USC, and he also was a professor there. And he hands me what looks like a flashlight and says, here, help me save the world, so to speak. And I thought he was crazy, to be honest with you. Shine a light on somebody and as if it was going to make a big difference. I didn't believe it. But I was willing to give it a try. And I'm telling you, within a relatively short period of time, it became evident that this was going to be very helpful for our people. And it absolutely eventually revolutionized my practice. This person came in with a gum disease. And the only thing we knew back then, they didn't know why it worked or how it worked, but they knew one thing, it couldn't hurt. And that's still true to this day. In the 50 years that they've studied this technology, there has never been a recorded side effect. So I used it. And I mean, this guy had a ripped Achilles tendon and he was slated for surgery. In fact, we sent him to the orthopedic for surgery. And when the surgery wasn't going to be until Friday, this was Monday, we treated him every day. And by the time he went for the surgical review, he didn't need the surgery. So as we started realizing that this was extremely powerful. And then over the years, that was a class one. Over the years, as you know, the world of technology continues to get better. So we went from a class one all the way eventually to a class four device. And then about 14, give or take, years ago, it was discovered an element of light that I was not using could actually help with fat loss. Fat loss in this country is huge. And people are willing to do a whole bunch of crazy things to their body, which chiropractic is not about. We're not going to put anything in the body that doesn't belong there. We're not interested in yanking anything else that does belong there. So imagine using light to actually encourage fat loss. And so I got in with both legs, both arms, went crazy and started manufacturing equipment for that, really that reason, about fat loss and healing as well. And it was wonderful. I mean, you pair it with a smart diet. Smart diet is not outrageously, it's not like a starvation diet. It's just a smart diet, which is calorically neutral and staying away from the 4 items that are most difficult, which is starchy carbohydrates, simple sugars, sodas, and alcohol. If you stay away from that as much as you can and add red light, your results will be very beautiful, wonderful. I mean, we're seeing phenomenal results with that. And then what happens 5-something years ago, COVID hits. And our practitioners wanted less physical contact between the patient and the provider. And so what we wound up doing was creating this bed. I don't know if everybody's, if you have your audience being able to see this, but this is a 5th generation bed. But our 1st generation bed was just to replace what we had done up to that point, because you can get in and out of bed yourself. You don't need staff to do it. And when people ask me how much does it cost in the world of business, it saves you money because you don't need staff. But that's a whole nother story we'll talk about later. Within us developing and having shipped about the first series of beds with that first month, we were starting to get feedback that was unbelievable. You know, up to that point, we just thought we were replacing what we had done up to then. And now we're seeing people talking about things that were incredible. So for example, Arnett calls up his practitioner and says, hey, you know what? I'm having a heart attack once, if not twice a week. It started at once a month 12 years ago, but it has steadily gotten worse and worse. And he was dying by the time he got to one of our offices. And we have hundreds of offices all over the country. I'm not in practice, so I'm not inviting anybody there, but we have lots of offices all over the country. And Arnett, if you can believe this, gets in our bed, goes home that night. Now remember, just to reiterate, he was dying. He got in the bed that night, he went home, and he has never had a heart attack since. That was 2 years ago. Now he's had more treatment, but no more heart attack. Hundreds of heart attacks, no more heart attacks. Dying, full of life now. I mean, as he says, and I'm going to send you a series of recordings and all kinds of show notes that you're more than welcome to share with your audience. But he was dying, and now he's not. He had erectile dysfunction, now he doesn't. Every organ, every gland, everything in his body has come back to life. And that's just one of many stories that we have. But that's crazy, right? I mean, what we learned is when you bathe the whole body at the same time. I don't have an objection to masks, helmets, pads, all that stuff. We make those, but we don't see the kind of miraculous results as we see when you bathe the whole body at the same time, top to bottom, left and right, front and back, inside and out, affecting as many cells as possible. And I'm going to go over in a little while what's the mechanism, why. This sounds crazy, right? When you talk to people who are doubters, and there are many of them, what I tell them is, first of all, the worst that'll happen with anybody is nothing. There are no side effects to this. So try it. So in fact, in my audience, when I talk to people, I get a little bold out there because I feel so strongly about that. And I said, you're not allowed to complain ever again about your ailments, about your aches and pains until you've used this bed 6 times. If you use it 6 times and see no change at all, which hardly ever happens, then you can start complaining again. No complaining. You got to try the bed 6 times. It will make that kind of results. It's only 12 minutes dose. It's 3 times a week for 2 weeks. At the end of the 6th visit, your practitioner will go over, this is where we were when we started, and here we are now. You might most very likely need more treatment, depends on how bad off you are. But I wanted you to know that the worse off somebody is, typically the more dramatic the changes. So if someone gets in the bed and they feel great, I don't know if they're going to see a change. But if they feel miserable, very likely within a short period of time, they're going to see a change.
Right.
And I apologize because I know it sounds like snake oil. I know it sounds crazy because I'm talking about every type of tissue, every square inch of your body. I don't care what your condition is, whether it's heart condition, as we just described, whether it's dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, whether it's any autoimmune disease, whether it's shingles, Lyme disease, whatever, it makes no difference. The mechanism is relatively similar. It's about healing the body. And so the condition is not as important as getting you better. And chiropractors believe in a thing called innate intelligence. What it is we fix the body as much as we can and then get the heck out of the way and let the body do the rest. So in other words, if someone cuts themselves on their arm, we're going to clean out the wound. Maybe we'll sew it up together and put a bandage over it and then get out of the way and let the body do itself. But the body can't do it itself if you're not keeping yourself otherwise healthy. So the better off you are, the more you're going to be able to heal almost anything that comes your way. You know, why did some people succumb to COVID and others didn't? It's because they were already predisposed and weak, and then they succumbed to the ailment. But there were healthy people that didn't succumb. And someone will say, well, he got a lower dose of COVID. No, that's not what happens. Try and keep yourself as healthy as you possibly can. So again, here we are, healing people, getting all kinds of things coming back to us. And it sounds crazy. What I liken well-being and health is like a candle that burns bright right from the very beginning and burns all the way down bright and then sputters out and dies. That's not how healing and well-being happens in this country that often. Many people spend the last 10 to 20 years of their life as invalids. They're not particularly healthy and they don't have a great life. And so your younger people, I want you to listen to your older self. Imagine that older self is crying, saying, please, would you do me a favor and take better care of yourself so I have a better older life, as a senior citizen. I'm 72 years old. I get in the bed 3 times a week. I'm not only doing that. I'm smart about how I eat, and I exercise 3 times a week, at least 3 times a week. And, it's about trying to keep yourself as healthy as possible and adding light to the whole mix. Now, I want to point out a few things to people. One, if you want to learn more, if you're looking at this, you can go to our website. It's Trifecta Light. Now, the tri for the triple effect of skin, fat, and healing. Fat loss also involved, healing, and of course, the skin from head to toe. So we had a lady that had 3 forms of psoriasis. She had guttate psoriasis, plaque psoriasis, and psoriatic arthritis. From the psoriatic arthritis, she wound up with dactylitis, which is sort of sausage toes, where her toes were so, when she would wake up in the morning, they were huge and black and blue and extremely painful. Within 2 visits, after 2 visits, that stopped. And with the guttate psoriasis and plaque psoriasis, she wound up where her ears were bleeding all the time, and she had rashes across the forehead, down both arms and both legs, under her chin. And within 2 weeks, all of that was stopped. Now, she needed more treatment to maintain and continue, but within 2 weeks to a month, most conditions are going to be wonderful. But I just tell all of you, try it for 6 visits. Just check it out. I'm not inviting you to my office. I'm suggesting finding an office that's closest to you. And the way to do that is you go to the website, trifectalight.com. On the left side of the Contact Us page, so you're going to go to the Contact Us page. On the left side, it says, find a location closest to you. And we will find a location closest to you. We can't list all of our locations because of privacy reasons, but we can find a location closest to you. Then try it for 6 visits and then get back to me. You can go back to that Contact Us page. And on the bottom of that page, it says you can generally ask questions or whatever and say, please get this to Dr. Rothschild, and they will forward it to me and I will check it out and answer any of your questions you may have. Now, on the right side of that Contact Us page, It also suggests perhaps that you might be interested in buying this. There are two reasons to buy it. One, if you want it for your home, it's not a toy. This is not inexpensive. It's like as expensive as a lower end car. But when you realize how expensive it is to be sick and what you lose in your life when you are sick, not just financially, but your life is not that much fun. You're an invalid. You're not mobile or whatever. When you learn that, it makes sense maybe to incorporate this in your home. But if that's not possible, then what I would suggest is going to a local business. So if you're interested as a business, if you know anything about the body, whether it's the aesthetic world, the fitness world, the healing world, or weight loss or whatever, you would benefit by having this bed as a centerpiece for your business. It's a magnet that will draw more new patients to your facility than you can imagine. And the ones that are already coming to your office are going to love incorporating this. I just spoke to somebody recently, and she said she referred 18 people to the office where she's going because she loved it. And that's what we hear mainly. And like I said, I'll be sending you these videos of people who are, they call it life altering. It changes your life totally. When you're sick and now you're better, people don't realize not just what it costs to be sick, but what a pain in the butt it is to be sick. So then we talked about that. I will also welcome people to go to the YouTube channel, which is at YouTube. It's at, you go to YouTube and you put in the @ sign and then Trifecta Light Official. And I'm telling you, there are some beautiful, beautiful videos there that are very educational and explain to you a lot about. There's over 120, I think there's now 130 videos there, and some of them are spectacular.
So Dr. Carl, can I cut you off here for just a moment? Because that is exactly what our listeners are looking for, the educational piece, like why this modality is something they really need to bring on. They have been sick. They're chronically ill. A lot of them are bedbound, so they're not able to do the mobility things that, are helpful for us, like to get that lymphatic and that stagnation going from the body for proper detoxification. So can you break down what exactly is red and near infrared light, and how is that actually accomplishing that cellular level regeneration?
Okay, you know what? This is a perfect time to go over that. So first of all, I want to talk to you about the words red light and infrared. So red is red, right? And red is not that healing, but it's wonderful for the fat loss and a little bit of healing. And then I want to talk to you about the word infrared. There is no such word as just infrared. It's either far infrared, which is a fancy way of getting deep penetrating heat and just heat, or near infrared, which is the miraculous wavelength or series of wavelengths. Near infrared is cold. When we started that many years ago, and you even mentioned low-level laser therapy, that's all about near infrared. It doesn't get hot. Heat is the enemy. Heat dilates blood vessels, brings more fluid to the surface that would block the penetration of light. You don't want hot lights. If you're dealing with, the cheap Chinese knockoffs, which comes, when you have a successful item, you're going to see all kinds of knockoffs for that, whether it's a fancy handbag, whether it's spectacular shoes that you can now get for $2.50. But, the question is, do you want to? You want to have the highest medical grade lights that you can possibly have. Right. So the lights do not burn hot. And that's what near infrared is all about. And so we've integrated red and near infrared. So let's talk about the mechanism. There's two completely different mechanisms. One, which was only discovered maybe 12 years ago, and that has to do with fat loss. By accident, as many research experiments result in, it's by accident when they discover something. Many of these medical discoveries they didn't plan on that. And by accident, they realize that there's an element of red, and only red, not green, purple, blue, not even red or near infrared, none of that, just red, that will help to shrink fat cells. How does it work? What they learned, in the beginning, they thought maybe it melted the fat, maybe it dissolved the fat, whatever. What they've learned was that red light will, to any of the fat cells that it can get exposed, that we can actually change the permeability of the fat cell wall, which means the fat cell wall becomes more porous and allows the contents to leak out into the surrounding tissue. And then with our unique protocol, we move that fat away from the fat cells, the fat contents, not the fat cells. We move the fat contents away from the fat cells, and eventually through the lymphatic system, which you mentioned before, all the ways to the liver for use or elimination. And one of the elements that we use is whole body vibration.
Mm.
Now, I've been involved with whole body vibration for at least 20 years, and I love it. And it's not the miracle that the light beds are, but it's a great adjunct to the work that we're doing. So the person gets in the bed, and then after they get dressed, they get on the whole body vibrational device to move and drain the junk that builds up in the person's body. The fat cells are very important. And people think, well, we should kill them off, or we should, use ultrasonic cavitation or radio frequency, or freeze the fat, boil the fat, laser the fat. All those are about killing fat cells. But fat cells just have a bad rap. They have a lousy name. But they're essential tissue that you don't want to get rid of. So by doing it the way I just described, using an element of sunlight, which is that red, and actually changing that fat cell wall to become more porous temporarily, it only lasts maximum of a day, and allows the fat contents to leak out, getting on the whole body vibration, and then allowing that fat to eventually get to the liver for use or elimination.
Okay, is it recommended for this practice, like in infrared sauna use, they do recommend the use of binders, detox binders. Is that something that would be recommended while or before getting into a red light bed?
So let's talk about infrared saunas. They're a totally different animal here. Infrared saunas are not going to do what I'm explaining to you, because they're all about heat, and heat blocks the penetration of light. Do I mind infrared saunas? No, but not related to red light therapy. Red light therapy is cold, and you want to get in it, or you want to use it and do it when you're not hot, when your blood is not on the surface, when you didn't just run up a flight of stairs, none of that. You want what we call a virgin body. That's your pulse is normal at a resting pace, and then you can use red light therapy. Then afterwards, anything you want, you can do, as long as it's healthy. So red light saunas could work afterwards to help and assist in moving the lymphatic system, around. I like whole body vibration better than any of them, because you're upright, it's pumping and moving the lymphatic system better than anything we've ever seen. So if I have to choose, I'm going to use a red light bed, I'm going to use a whole body vibrational unit. And while they're on the whole body vibrational unit, I hand them a massager, and they massage the areas that we're working on while they're getting the vibration from the whole body vibrational unit. And so we're really encouraging that movement of the fat that we want to release from usually the buttocks, the thigh, and the abdomen, and move that eventually out of the body.
Okay, so is this considered the visceral fat or the subcutaneous fat?
Well, so now this is subcutaneous fat. However, visceral fat is affected as well. So the subcutaneous fat is the stuff that we see that doesn't look so great, but it doesn't kill you. What kills you is the visceral fat.
Yes.
Subcutaneous fat it reflects the fact that the person's food choices are not great, and that's what leads to the diabetes and stuff. But I know people who are overweight and live until they're 100 or in their late 90s. It's not what kills them. What kills people is the crappy food that leads to visceral fat, which has to do with, some of the worst things you can eat are the things I mentioned: starchy carbohydrates, simple sugars, soda, and alcohol. Are there many other things to watch out for? Yeah, when I have seen tens of thousands of patients, and I've had to deal with all kinds of issues. And being overweight is a big pain for a chiropractor, because if you're overweight, your spine's going to suffer. If I can get that weight off of you, your spine's going to do better. You're going to respond better to the work that I'm doing with you. So I've always wanted to help people with their weight loss. It ain't so easy. Some people are obsessed with food. Some people just have a real struggle in losing the fat, and adding lights to this mix has made a really nice, it's been a wonderful process.
Right.
So that's one mechanism. Mm-hmm. Are you ready for the big major mechanism?
Let's hear it.
Just past the big bill, whatever. This is the big, because I'm a healer. Do I love weight loss? Weight loss is going to bring more people into a facility than anything else, probably anything else. Mm-hmm. But I'm a healer, and I love the healing aspects of the near infrared. So we talked about fat loss and that mechanism. So now let's talk about the other mechanism. And that's everything else. That has to do with working our hand down from the top of your head all the way to the bottom of your feet. We start off with hair restoration, anything in the brain, with the mouth, the eyes, the thyroid, all the way down to the bottom of your feet. I don't care, liver. I can go through every organ. I'll spare us, but I won't mention them all. But even heart, we already talked about Arnett that had horrible heart issues. We talked about Jessica, who had 16 horrible things, including 20 years of diarrhea, all resolved. We talked about, we didn't mention Steve. So Steve contracted Lyme disease when he was 12. And it ruined his childhood, it ruined his education, it ruined his social life. And of course, he had no career because he barely had enough energy to get through the day. How could he really be, he would not be your prime candidate to work in your office. And he tried, but it was a struggle for him. His energy was shot. By the time we met him, he was in his 50s. So he was 40 years suffering with this horrible disease. And I'm going to send you the videos, and one of them, Steve, and I'm going to ask the audience, please watch that video. Because remember, I started as a hippie, so to speak. And what did I want? I wanted to help people. I love when people come to me and say, thank you for giving me my life back. What could be better than that? Well, when you watch Steve's video or any of these other videos, but Steve in particular, that got me goosebumps when you listen to it. So I'm not even going to tell you anything else about it.
We'll have to see it. We'll definitely link that in the show notes here.
So now let's talk about the mechanism that I love. Now, this they've been studying for a lot longer than the fat loss stuff. And in the beginning, again, they also, even when I was involved 27, 28 years ago, they didn't know why it worked. All they knew is that it worked and it didn't hurt. That's the only thing we knew. And then you're going to ask me about contraindications. Contraindications means who should not use the bed. And the truth of the matter is there are really no contraindications. So you can get in the bed with metal. You can get in the bed with electronic components like pacemaker, defibrillator, all that stuff. None of those are contraindicated. The only not real contraindication is a pregnant woman, because we know the lights would help the mother and the fetus. But if that baby comes out anything other than perfect, they're going to want to blame somebody. And I tell everybody, let's just not be in that neighborhood. Let her go through the pregnancy, and right after delivery, get into the darn bed, and she'll heal from, especially C-sections, she'll heal from that so much faster, you will not believe. So now let's talk about the mechanism of healing.
Well, let's back up just one moment with the contraindications before you move on. So we work with clients who have mesh implants, so whether it be pelvic mesh or hernia mesh. And so you've already mentioned that this isn't a heat, like an increase in thermal temperature with the red light bed, although maybe some people do experience temperatures being elevated. But there has been some studies, nothing substantial, nothing like peer-reviewed or backed in terms of the potential to enhance degradation of these products. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of like the polypropylene and the polyester meshes that they're using nowadays?
Okay, so number one, it's not about heat. Remember, if you're in our bed, we can control the power completely and control the frequency, so we can pulse the wave. And the importance of pulsing the wave is creating a resonating frequency that allows us to affect different tissues. As you may know, different tissues resonate at different frequencies. And so if you've heard of Rife frequencies, all that. But we weren't always able to pulse the wave. So now we can pulse the wave with the bed, the lights, and we also include a sound generator. So we have sound frequencies, we have vibratory frequencies from the whole body vibration unit, and we have the light frequencies. So that's a major thing. But getting back to your question, it's not about generating heat. So the mesh should not be negatively affected in any way. And what should happen is that any of the tissues around there that still need to heal will heal beautifully.
Right.
Now, we know that there have been lawsuits about mesh, and, I've had, unfortunately, patients that had hernias. And as a chiropractor, I didn't really have an answer for that. I still don't have an answer. Listen, there are some things that the bed by itself can't help. So if someone has a bullet in their shoulder, get the damn bullet out, and then we'll heal it. With a hernia, that needs to be fixed, typically. We're talking about, remember, tissue being where it's not supposed to be.
Mhm.
So if it's supposed to be over here and now it's migrated over here, we need to fix that. And just getting in the bed probably will not reverse that.
Right, right. I can imagine it only has positive impacts, as in it's toning down the inflammation around the tissue, around the mesh. There are some people who go ahead and do explants and they do wonderfully with all of these treatment modalities. You know, some people really love trying to get into red light therapy once, twice, 3 times a week when they're able to. So I love the aspect of having something for their home use as well, because it probably is more economical, as you said, to own the piece of equipment rather than to keep looking for facilities.
I don't know about that. I mean, there's just some people that don't have the room for something like this. So most of my facilities that are very busy have a program like a gym membership.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll go in there and you'll have unlimited use perhaps, or whatever stage of type of program you have with them. So it'll be a much less expensive process, and it's just like joining a gym. And so we call it club bed, to be honest with you. So now let's talk about the mechanism.
Yes.
Again, they studied this for many, many years and had no idea. They weren't sure why it worked. So first thing I want to say, it's about the sun. What we've done is we've taken 4 beautiful elements of sun, 2 red elements, 2 near infrared elements, magnify them many times, because as nice as the sun is, it's not going to do what we need it to do at the level of impact on the person's body as what we can do with them lying just for 12 minutes in the bed. We magnify it many times and then drive it deep into the person's body. So that's having to do with that. So now let's talk about the mechanism of what they learned. Again, it's about the sun, and what they've learned is that the sun can stimulate, and for hundreds of years they've talked about, hey, we'll help you with different ailments, go sit out in the sun, which helps to a degree. Now we've, again, increased that likelihood very much. And what it's about, but they didn't know why it worked. What they learned is it's all about the mitochondria. So what is the mitochondria? The mitochondria is the powerhouse of your body. The mitochondria produces a very important molecule called ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. Everything in your body, including healing, every function in your body requires ATP. So if your body doesn't have enough ATP being generated, you're going to suffer. It'll lead to disease and eventually death. So the goal here is, and everyone thinks, well, as you get older, you're going to lose the mechanism of mitochondrial, what they call it, mitochondrial dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And they have books now on it. They have a disease or a series of diseases called mitochondrial dysfunction. Well, in our lives, there would be no such thing, because you get in the bed. You wouldn't have mitochondrial dysfunction. So at any rate, let's talk about this. The mitochondria, when I went to school, we were taught there was 1 mitochondria in every cell of the body. And that's so way off the truth. And the truth is that, for example, the heart, which has the highest demand for energy, each heart cell has over 5,000 mitochondria in it. And to give you an idea how prevalent, how important the mitochondria are, there is over 10% of your body's weight is the mitochondria. I mean, when I first read that, and when I first heard years ago, I couldn't believe it. That means, what are we talking about? Hair, brain, all the tissues, your bone, your skin, all of that makes up 90%, and 10% of your body is made up of the mitochondria. So just get an idea how important it is, how critical it is. And so what does it do? It stimulates ATP production. It's the ATP that allows you to function. But what they also learned is that the mitochondria themselves are not sun sensitive. It's called being a cytochrome. It's called being a chromophore. So there are chromophores in your body that are sensitive to the sunlight or to our light. And so it wasn't the mitochondria that was sensitive to the light. It's an enzyme inside of the mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase. Cytochrome C oxidase is the chromophore that is stimulated by certain elements of light that we use in our bed to stimulate the mitochondria to come back to life. If you have a fully functioning mitochondrial system, you're going to do much better. Now, I mean, in every which way. And so it's about healing. It's about warding off anything that could come at you. So when you're in the room with fully functional mitochondrial system and this person's not, and when someone sprays COVID, let's say, in the air, you're not going to get it. You'll get it, but it won't be. It'll be a little minor cold, and this person might succumb to it. They may actually die from that. So your job, our job, is to keep our bodies as healthy as possible, to keep our resistance as high as possible, so that our immune system could ward off just about anything. Right. So the mechanism, again, is 4 elements of sunlight driven into the body. The ATP production, it needs to be normal. We're not talking about excessive amount. And that's where the innate intelligence of the body comes in. We're not going to sit there and say, okay, you need this much ATP. What we're going to do is get the mitochondria doing its job so that the right amount of ATP is there for you to function, so that your quality of life, it's not about living longer. I mean, that's fine. But what it's really about is having the highest quality of life possible. That's what we're looking for, people.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like, again, another wonderful modality for the clients that I work with. They are highly sensitive. They've gone through invasive surgeries. And so they have this trauma response where they react to things like even light, like bright light or being outdoors. They're not able to tolerate being outdoors for an extended amount of time, odors, sounds. And so one of the holdbacks to their healing is their body is lacking the nutritional needs. Like you said, there are certain things that we can get from food to enhance mitochondrial function too. But these clients are unable to eat a fully nutritious diet, number one, and they're not able to tolerate supplements for the most part. Like they have to work their way very slowly and methodically. But here, if they have a modality such as this, I'm sure you have some protocols that, you know, your highly sensitive clients could start to use this product. Like what would you recommend for them if they're overwhelmed with everything?
So if I have, I mean, again, I've treated thousands of people, and some people, as you say, are highly sensitive. A good chiropractor is going to have many methods. If you only have one method, then you're only going to be able to help a small percentage of the people. Some people don't want to be adjusted. Some people want a soft tissue kind of approach, you know, what they call a non-force approach. Well, similarly here, what I would do is if I had somebody that was extremely sensitive, like we had this guy, remember, that was having heart attacks. We didn't treat him for a full dose. We gave him part of a dose. Mm-hmm. And because he was so bad off, remember, the worse off somebody is, the more the dramatic the results are. So if you have somebody that's in miserable shape, I'm confident that after 6 visits, that's 3 times a week for 2 weeks, that they're going to see a significant change, or at least some change that they haven't seen in many years in their life. But sometimes, even after just 1 visit, when Jerusha, who had a stroke, used our bed just after 1 time, she saw a major change. And then after 8 visits, so I want all your people to watch all the videos we're sending, but Jerusha is a really great one. She had the stroke. Mm-hmm. And when they watch that, you'll see that after 8 visits, she was better than she was before she ever had the stroke. I mean, that's spectacular, right? I mean, to think we didn't know it was going to help her stroke. I was not even involved with that. No one called me until it was done. The practitioner just did it, and then calls me up and says, "You're not going to believe this. Lady had a stroke. She had her drooping on the one side of her body was dramatic. Her arm was curled in and under her, and now she's better than she was before she ever had the stroke."
Mm-hmm. Have you had patients come in that had severe mast cell activation disorders? And so most times I see that they're very hesitant to try any new modality. So have you seen any patients come in, and how did they do?
Like I said, we'll always treat. We've never heard of a side effect, right? So the worst that'll happen is nothing. So you start off maybe the first visit just 3 minutes, or 5 minutes.
Okay.
I would just do 5 minutes. That's what we did with Arnett.
Right.
And he went home that night after just the first 5-minute treatment, and it changed his life. Mm. Now, his treatment subsequently eventually got to 12 minutes, which is a full dose.
Okay.
Most everything happens within 7 minutes, but we lock it in with a 12-minute dose.
Love it. Dr. Carl, this sounds amazing because a lot of people don't have a lot of time also like to dedicate to these things. They don't have to worry about waiting for some device to heat up to the right temperature because that's not the focus. That's not the goal of this at all. So I love everything you're saying with respect to how it can help heal the entire body, regardless of any, we'll say, diagnosed conditions. Really, it's treating the metabolic chaos that's in the body anyways. Everything stems from an imbalance in the body. And so, before we end for today, is there some way you can summarize the key benefits to using red light therapy and building up to that recommended dose, that 12-minute dose?
I think 99% of the people, maybe your people are different because you do have highly sensitive people, but a huge percentage just do 12 minutes, no problem. But if you talk and have a discussion with the provider, just say, look, I'd like to, ease into this. So you just do 5 minutes, maybe with the first two visits. And when you realize it's no big difference as far as, it's not going to hurt you in any way, then you get up to the 12 minutes as quick as you can. The thing is that taking care of yourself is not a short period of time. You're taking care of yourself for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. You want to make sure, I'm a little bit of a nut. People ask me about my ordeal, what I do. Now, they used to call me no vices because the guy would say, hey, at a party, how about some alcohol? No, I don't drink alcohol. How about, they would probably doing some marijuana or something like, no, I don't put anything in my body. I don't take any drugs. I never had any injections. Those things called the vaccinations. Vaccinations, when you understand it, I could do a whole class on that, it makes a lot of sense, but not when it's made the way it was done here. I don't want to get involved with vaccinations, but I don't let anything into my body that's not going to help me. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with food. I eat protein, fruits, and vegetables, and that's pretty much all. Now, but I do have a snack and I do have a dessert maybe, but my version of a dessert is a very healthy thing. But I didn't start off that way. I was not the most disciplined person. You know how you become disciplined? You freak out when you see all these people who are now older and because they didn't take care of themselves, they're a mess. I didn't want that. As a chiropractor, I got to see a lot of people that I didn't say it out loud, but I would say to myself, please God, don't let me wind up like that. And that's what it's about. Doing the best you can for yourself right now, this moment. And if you screw up, you just try it again the next day. People who are overweight and don't have as much control, they get down on themselves because they screw up. They went on to a wedding and they overate, or they went on a cruise and they, go a little crazy because you're being exposed. The best way for most people is to not have it in the house. And if you're married or have a mate or whatever, have that person help you with the process. If they're coming home with a full pizza that you can't stop smelling, it's not going to help you, unless you have the discipline of just having one slice. Right. Most people who are overweight don't have that discipline. The best thing is to keep it out of your life for at least a while until you start seeing the success. I can go on. Listen, I've taught classes on weight loss. I've taught classes on health and well-being and vitamins and nutrition and diet and all kinds of stuff. I love this stuff. And if you love yourself enough and you don't want to wind up in a wheelchair, you don't want to wind up as a handicapped individual, you can avoid that. Do the best you can.
Yeah. In hindsight, I know that personally for my own healing journey, I could have done a lot better. I did eat some of the standard American diet and I found myself in a wheelchair after surgery's gone bad. So that mobility piece, when I lost it, that was the turning point. It took 2 to 3 years of round and round from the conventional health space, pharmaceuticals, prescribed many, many, many CT scans, and realizing mobility wasn't improving, function wasn't improving. But after that, what you mentioned before, when you realize there's nothing else that you can get help from outside, you have to look within and you change your diet. You have to be as strict as you need to be. And from that perspective, it really takes someone to be really chronically ill to make that drastic shift where you do cut out everything of the sugars, like 100% of the sugars, 100% of gluten, 100% of any like alcohols, which are sugars too, but that goes, without getting into all of the specifics, the chronically ill community that has realized it's going to take a 100% shift in their diet and lifestyle. And so these modalities that we build in as part of their protocol, they can be an adjunct to everything else they're doing. So it's something that they can integrate pretty readily, I believe, is this type of red light therapy. And I love that, it doesn't impact, someone might need help to get into a bed, but it's not like they have to shift. They don't have to do exercise or manual work while they're in the bed. And I guess with mobility issues.
We had a lady that her Parkinson's was so severe, and the rigidity, she's like a rock. And so the rigidity was ridiculous. So they had a little bit of a struggle getting her into bed the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Getting her out of the bed after just the first visit was much easier. Mm-hmm. And within 2 weeks, she was able to get in and out of the bed pretty much herself. She got some assistance. But I do want to point something. I don't want to be controversial here, but I might say it a little differently than what you said, because I'll tell you, if you tell somebody that they have to cut something out completely, it's kind of difficult. So I might say, let's just lessen it, because sugar is like everywhere. In fact, if you want to get rid of, I don't have dairy in my diet. I don't have gluten in my diet. I don't have sugar in my diet. But I didn't do it overnight. And I think I'm more average than you would imagine. It's just that I got scared out of my mind seeing what people wind up with. I just want you to think about, I'm talking about your audience. Mm-hmm. Think about what your 75-year-old self is saying to you right now. You're 30 years old, and your 75-year-old self is begging you to do better, to take better care, so that when you are 75, you have a vibrant life. A higher quality of life is what we're looking for you. That's what it's about. Mm-hmm. And when you described what you talked about years ago that happened to you, in my mind, I'm thinking, get her in the bed right away. You would not believe. I know it sounds crazy, but
no, I believe it now.
And the only way, again, there's no side effect. There's no really downside to it, other than the worst that'll happen is nothing. So I want each of you, you're no longer allowed to complain. Try 6 visits. And after 6 visits, if it doesn't work for you, there's one of 2 things. One, they've neglected to plug the bed in, which is not probably the issue. Or 2, you have one of the most rarest things, because we have not seen that very often, where it doesn't help almost just about everybody. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some things that, some people are too far gone, but I am telling you, try it for 6 visits. And if you don't see any change at all, I would be very surprised.
Right, right. So in summary, we want our audience to know maybe more, not so much of a drastic mind shift, life shift, as I explained earlier, but maybe at 20%, 80% stay on target, 20%, maybe some deviation. But in terms of this and, the movement piece. So movement, we want every day, whatever is available to each person. If they need assistance in that, there's always physical therapists who can help you with the mobility. But if we're building in this into their protocol, again, you can just kind of summarize what is the ideal for a client or a patient who has been severely hindered in movement.
3 times a week, get in the bed. And if you're a physiotherapist and you don't have this bed in your practice, that's a mistake. If you're a chiropractor or naturopath or anybody in the natural world, the reason why I'm mentioning people, when you have drugs and surgery at your that you can use, you have the possibility of making a lot more money. And so it's really hard to convince people, that, hey, I suggest you use this bed so you can make less money. It doesn't work so well sometimes. But if you're in the natural world, or if you're not a surgeon, if you're not that heavily involved with drugs to sell, then I strongly recommend you incorporate red light therapy in your business. And in my opinion, it should be full body. Mm-hmm. I manufacture pads. We manufacture a mask. I really don't promote it anymore that much, because we never got miracles from that. Yeah, your face will look better. With the bed, your whole body is going to be better. Not only is your face going to look better, fine lines and wrinkles under the chin jowl region, the crepe neck will be much, much better. But when you're using the full body, it's a fountain of youth, and it's a great way for a person to get overall well-being and health.
Awesome. Dr. Carl, thank you for that summary. We have the website there on your background, trifectalight.com. We'll also have that in the show notes. And is there anything you want to leave off for our audience today before we end?
I just, I started in the 1970s as a hippie, wanting to help as many people as possible. And I've never seen anything like red light that will help so many people, that will do it in a very reasonable way. Remember, no side effects and essentially no contraindications other than if you're pregnant, hold off and the day after you deliver. So, you can see I'm a little passionate. My staff made me this mug. Can you see that?
Get in the bed.
Because that's my attitude. Would you just do it? 6 visits, just try it. And if you don't see a difference, which we hardly ever see, within 6 visits, you'll see a change. Even in the eyes. We had this lady who had swelling in her eyes, and now she doesn't. It just goes on and on. When the person gets in the bed, they keep their eyes closed and their mouth open. So we can get in the mouth and the gum disease and tongue and throat and all that stuff. But also in the eye, you don't need to keep your eyes open. You could, but it's annoying. It's a very bright light. So you just keep your eyes closed. And I'm telling you, the light can get through your skull, get to the brain. So it can get through the eyelid. And we have people just lying there with their eyes closed, mouth open, just 12 minutes, listening to some beautiful, usually we like to use a certain wavelength of energy. So we have a sound generator there generating these beautiful sounds, and most people fall asleep.
Yeah. It's a wonderful way to get into the parasympathetic mode. So all perfect for healing. So
Right.
Dr. Carl, thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us. We appreciate all of your information. We'll definitely link those studies or those testimonials.
I have a whole bunch of stuff I'll send you.
Okay, so we'll link all of that in the show notes. And again, just appreciate you sharing some time with us today.
My pleasure. Everybody take care.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.